So you're relatively new to producing and people have been able to tell that you're somewhat of a beginner. Now I run the Heat Check Live Beat Review show every week and I can always tell when someone is new to creating beats, and it could be surprising for some people, but it's not for me because I've been doing it for so long. So today we're gonna go over how people can tell that you're new to beat making and what you can do to fix it. You ready? Let's get into it. Sign number one is cheap stock sounds. That's right, whenever you're a new producer, you're typically going to reach for the stock sounds and the DAW, and really since I first started creating beats, those stock sounds have started to sound really, some of them are really good and they're starting to get competitive, but they still don't have that shine, that punch, that impact that these well put together drum kits have. So you might not quite know how to pick the right snare for the beat, or you might not know how to select the correct kick for that beat, and I can usually tell that based on your sound selection that this is something that you're new at and you want to keep working at it so you can actually get better. So one way you can get past this hump of cheap stock sounds is, of course, look for higher quality sounds, but you might not know what that sounds like. So definitely look on YouTube for remakes and even try to remake beats yourself, and that's going to give you different little tweaks, different little nuances on what the more professional producers are doing and how you can incorporate those skills into your particular beat making process. So humble yourself, look at different processes of bigger producers, put that in your mental Rolodex. The next time you get to cooking up beats, you're gonna be more skilled at picking the right snare, the right kick, the right hi-hat, all these different things to help glue and put the sound of the beat together in a more cohesive way. All right, and the next sign is a stiff drum groove. That's right, whenever you're making beats and you're relatively new, you're likely just putting everything directly on the grid. There's no type of slipping of any sound. Everything is right there and it starts to be a little bit robotic. I know you guys are using that quantize button and making sure everything is together, especially if you don't really play the keys or anything like that. It could be kind of difficult to do things unquantized, and doing things unquantized definitely gives you a more human feel, but in the beginning it might be a little risky to try something like that. So if you want to get over this hump of your drums being a little too stiff, don't be afraid to just slip certain sounds off the grid. Maybe it's the hi-hats, maybe it's the percussion loops, maybe it's the musical loop itself. Also, if you're playing keys, you're playing the piano, you don't have to have each piano note directly on the grid and have the velocity totally up. That sounds a little bit robotic. Try playing with the velocity, try slipping some of those piano notes on the chord. Over time, as you keep practicing making beats, you're gonna start to learn how to do it and it's gonna become second nature. So keep at it. I promise you it gets better. And the next sign is dissonance or clashing melodies. So if your ear is not really tuned into what actually sounds good melodically, it can be easy to add certain notes into your beat that just don't quite go well together. Now, everything doesn't necessarily have to be in key, and I know it's kind of risky to say in a video like this because sometimes things being slightly off key can create this cool, weird, eerie type of feel, but especially in the beginning, you want to kind of do everything by the book, so that way later you can learn the rules so you can break the rules later. So first you want to learn the rules, then you want to break the rules because you have more flexibility and you know what you're doing. So if you're having issues with clashing melodies, people keep saying something is off key and it doesn't feel right because the key is clashing, take a little bit of time, learn some basic music theory. There's plenty of resources now on YouTube and your local music store. I know I have this little booklet of different chords I had way back in the day. That definitely helped me out a lot. So you want to learn some music theory so that way you can know what direction you're going in, and if you do want to break the rules, you know how to do it in a artistic kind of way instead of doing it on accident. The next sign is digital distortion. So that's when you're cooking up a beat and you're letting all your sounds just smack directly into the red in your mixer of your DAW. And man, this is something a lot of producers do, and it introduces a lot of harsh sounds, a lot of brittle sounds into your beat. And you may not know in the beginning that whenever you are hearing a beat that sounds good and it's smoother, but it still has aggression and impact, that's not just because of sound selection, that's also because the producer knows how to balance the sound with other sounds and allow some breathing room and headroom so that way the beat can actually have impact. As far as getting beats to hit hard, it's not always just pushing up the kick or pushing up the 808. I know that's a lot of misinformation that's on the internet, but it's definitely a balance of sounds. So you don't want to get caught up in that. I actually just released my new course called The Drum Doctor, where I have a section on volume balancing, so that way you know how to get your beats to hit hard without distorting everything. So check that out in the description, and I'll be glad to help you out hands-on in the course. Just give yourself some headroom. Don't let all your sounds smack into the red, so that way your sounds actually can have dynamics. Things have to be quiet before things can be perceived as loud. Things have to be softer before things can be perceived as more aggressive. So take your time, start to understand how to balance your sounds so they sound good and you don't have everything in the red, just kind of hurting the listener's ear. All right, and the next sign is over compression or no dynamics. Man, this is something that I hear quite frequently. I think some producers are actually just getting the different tools, getting the different waves plugins, and then just kind of going crazy, just using different templates and presets and thinking that everything applies to the sounds that they have. And that's a mistake that I made in the beginning when it came to actually working with vocals, is dealing too much with templates and plugins, which did cause me to have issues when it came to doing and dealing with compression. When it comes to having dynamics and dealing with over compression, what you want to do is you want to understand that the sounds that you have is not going to need the same treatment as the sounds in whatever cook-up video you're watching or whatever advice you're getting from Reddit. Your drum selection, your instruments that you're using in your beat, it has its own special treatment that is going to need to sound good, and just smashing it with a compressor is going to kill the life out of it. You know, it's kind of like going to a restaurant and then food comes out and somebody instantly gets the salt and the pepper and the hot sauce and they cover it with all the food, and it's just like, wait a minute, you didn't even taste the food to figure out what the food needed. You just instantly threw all this stuff on there because maybe you've seen someone else do it to a similar looking dish, but you have to figure out what this individual dish needs. And it's similar to music production. You have to figure out what your sounds need and add it on a case-by-case individual basis. So take some time to learn compression, take some time to understand what your different tools need. One good tip is to actually use the manual that you have. A lot of you guys are using, stock plugins, maybe even Waves plugins. Look at the manual, see what's happening. If you don't understand something, Google what that word means, or ChatGPT what that word means and what that concept means so you can comprehend it. So use those tools to help you understand the basics of compression, so that way you can, do things tastefully. Don't just totally kill the dynamics, so that way we don't feel the music. So music is all about feeling. I know we have all these tools, but you want to maintain that original feeling when it comes time to exporting your beat so everyone can enjoy it. All right, and the next sign is no structure to the beat. This is where the beat starts out one way, transforms into something else, then transforms into something else. There's no real direction. It's kind of like watching a movie that just goes from one place to another to another. The plot just keeps changing. You can't really figure out the through line, so you kind of get lost and you can kind of start getting disengaged and disinterested in what's going on. So when it comes to having no structure to a beat, understand, especially in the beginning phases, you're just throwing stuff together, figuring out stuff. You're just kind of having fun, kind of like a kid in a candy store, and I definitely understand that. But when it comes time to developing the next steps, understand how to structure a beat, the intro, the verse. Is it going to be a 12-bar verse, 16-bar verse? What about the hook? How are you going to structure that? What about the outro? How are you going to structure that? Once again, we have a lot of tutorials on YouTube to assist you with structuring your beats. I definitely recommend taking a look at those. Also, if you can work with local recording artists, that would definitely be more ideal, because that way they can tell you what they want taken out. This is where I want the hook to be, and they can help you learn that skill set firsthand. So have fun in the beginning, but eventually when you want to start to develop, start taking, structuring your beats more seriously. If you want more free help, make sure you submit to the Heat Check Live Beat Review Show. It's something that I'm currently doing every week. There's a link in the description. I'll be glad to review your music and give you some tips. The last sign is out of key 808s. Yes, that is a big thing in the music production community. You're going to see a lot of memes, a lot of jokes, a lot of different type of skits going on in the music production community about out of key 808s, and it's because it throws off the entire vibe. If we're in the studio with different recording artists and then we're playing a beat and it feels good, it sounds good, and then the out of key 808 hits, it can just totally throw everything off. It's almost like we might as well have not heard the beat in the first place, because the out of key 808 just threw everything off. And if you want to get better at having your 808s in key, one tip is to transpose the 808 to a higher octave. Just make sure it sounds almost like a bell, that that sine wave almost sounds like a bell. It's easier for the human ear to hear higher frequencies than it is lower frequencies. So push it up, listen, make sure it sounds like it's in key, and then push it back down once you make sure things sounds more musical. You know, don't just guess. It's easy to think that things are in key when they're real low, but push it up, make sure it feels good, and then push it back down, and then make sure everything is locked in, so that way you won't get roasted by the out of key 808 police. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe. My name is Desmond A, and I'll be back with more great videos. Peace. Desmond A.